Hello, welcome to the First Issue Club comic book podcast, officially sponsored by Boulevard Brewing Company. Yum, Space Camper IPA.
Drink it down and be taken to another plane of existence.
We've got two books we're going to be talking about this week, Frontiersman on Image and He Who Fights with Monsters on Ablaze. We've been covering more Ablaze stuff lately.
We have. They've been kind of marching up the charts of relevance here for us.
Stepping up their game. Blazing Behemoth starting to make their ways into my short boxes.
Before we get the show started, can we have a moment of silence?
I don't know if we can because my dog's barking in the background.
This week, Doctor Strange passed away.
So sad.
We're never going to see Doctor Strange again, so we'll have a quick moment of silence. That's it.
Rip.
We'll never see him again? Or will we? We will.
Yeah, probably next week.
We can move on with the show now.
He's going to be in Defenders.
Yeah. Well, quick spoiler, I did read the death of Doctor Strange. If you don't want to hear it, skip 15 seconds. The zinger is Doctor Strange comes through a portal and he goes, "Tell me what year it is."
That's fun, though.
Yeah, kind of cool.
I like that.
Little time caper.
It reminds me a lot of the death of Mrs. Fantastic, and you find out that their maid is an aged Sue Storm from the future, and that Sue Storm dies, and you're just like, oh, fucking come on.
Seriously, boo. Which is why I give such high praise to DC for Alfred remaining dead.
Right.
I
As
mean,
long as he has, come on, that's great.
I fully expect a cyborg, Alfred to show up eventually with the weird nanotech skin.
Right.
And we'll just say, okay, that's robot Alfred. He can't get wet.
The fact that he's been gone for 30-plus issues is phenomenal.
Yeah, 30-plus mainline Batman issues,
Right.
not counting tie-ins or other, DC books.
Yep.
So, pretty buck wild.
Way to go, DC.
Way to go, DC.
Showing some self-restraint.
Also, Scarlet Witch is dead. What is Marvel doing? It's killing all their MCU heroes.
Those are the headlines, dude. I'm so annoyed with the death of Scarlet Witch thing because it's like, you could bring her back.
Yeah.
We've solved death in the X-Men.
I think we've just solved death in comic books.
Oh, period. Right.
Did you hear this, that in November 14th or 12th, one of those days, is officially Disney Plus Day?
What does that mean?
Okay, I'm glad you asked. Disney Plus is going to have like a special event on Disney Plus where they're going to showcase all their upcoming shows for the next coming years.
Okay.
So we're going to get upcoming Marvel trailers, Star Wars trailers, like Pixar, all kinds of stuff.
Okay, cool.
Because if you remember last year, they had the like investors meeting
Yeah.
where millions of people watched a like Excel spreadsheet PowerPoint thing just to get to the trailers, and they're just like, wait a minute, there's a
better way to do
this because we don't want these fans watching a real corporate meeting.
Totally. So it's like in lieu of doing all your trailers at San Diego Comic-Con or something,
Right.
they're just putting them on Disney Plus.
Which is kind of what DC's doing with DC Fandom.
Yeah.
Their own like Comic-Con event, which makes me speculate that San Diego Comic-Con doesn't have as much clout as it used to.
Right. Everyone's taking stuff to their own streamers and platforms.
Which is...
Which you'd want to do.
Yeah, it's good for those corporations. Bad for San Diego Comic-Con.
Right, totally.
Because that, for the longest time, Hall H was the biggest fucking deal on the planet. That's where all the shit dropped.
People have told me, though, that San Diego was one of the worst Comic-Cons they've been to because it's all just lines and waiting an entire day to get into one panel.
Yeah.
Or maybe you get into a hall that has a panel and you have to sit through like 3 things that are irrelevant to you. Podcast you've never heard of that you're not a fan of.
That's like doing trivia.
Yeah. Like us. And they bomb because the people aren't fans of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it'd be great if their fans could get in, but they can't because they're waiting for DC to show up next to do movie trailers.
Give us your trailers. It's like, no, we're doing fucking podcasting right now.
Yeah.
So it's almost like...
Maybe it'll get better for fans.
I hope so, because I feel like for the longest time, the San Diego Comic-Con has been kind of taken over by like media outlets.
Totally.
Trying to get the scoop before anybody else.
Yep.
So I've never heard of anyone going to San Diego Comic-Con to buy comics.
Right.
Like we go to Planet and C2E2 because they have just gobs and gobs of comics
Exclusive covers.
Yes. All kinds of crazy shit.
Great creators that are selling things that you can only get at the convention. It's awesome.
Yeah. And even like New York Comic-Con does that still.
Yeah.
They haven't been like a big pop culture thing yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's packed as fuck.
Yeah.
So many people in that one.
Yeah.
So I that's why I'm just like not wanting to ever go to those. Like I'm being invited to go to them anyways, but like I could care less about going to San Diego.
C2E2 is the perfect speed for me because it's just massive. There's a lot of people, but it's not so insane that you can't walk into a panel.
It is so spread out, like kind of everything in the Midwest, where it's like in an old airplane hangar. It's like gigantic.
Yeah.
And so there's so much room. There's so many vendors. We got press passes this year, which is pretty dope.
Yep.
So we'll be there.
Can't wait.
So if you're up there in C2E2, let us know, and that'll be it. We're not going to meet up. We want to know that you're there and safe. We actually have done that before. We've done meetups at
it's
some
awesome.
places, and it's awesome to meet you guys. So I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
But the Disney thing. I think that's really exciting for me because I want to see hopefully some Moon Knight footage, some She-Hulk footage.
I can't wait to see what the story with She-Hulk is.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that one.
Fucking jazzed.
And I can't wait to see like what era they put it in, and obviously it's going to be like modern day when it's filmed, but like storyline wise, are they putting in?
I think they're going the Dan Slott route.
Oh hell yeah, we'll probably
She-Hulk.
get Pug.
Yeah.
And some of those other people. I wonder if those roles have been cast, and you can check them out on IMDb. I'll have to look at that after we record.
I haven't heard of any castings except for Titania.
Oh,
She's been cast.
Really? Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
And then obviously She-Hulk, and that's all I've heard about.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bruce Banner's going to be in there, so we'll see some of what's
Mark
his
Ruffalo.
butt? Yeah. But
Great.
that's all I know.
I love it.
I'm glad I was able to pass that on to you. Other than that, Legionnaires is coming out. It's a new X-Men book. It's like the team that Nightcrawler forms with like Juggernaut and all that.
It's too much. Slow it down. And now that we're doing have you read any of the Marvel Unlimited exclusives yet?
I haven't, no.
Yeah.
Have you?
Several.
And?
It's funny because you can tell they're all like, oh, let's play with the format of like long scrolling books. And so a lot of them have characters like falling. It's like that's the one thing you can do.
Hell yes.
With these like long scrolls is like, oh no, he fell in another hole.
That's incredible.
Like the Jonathan Hickman one, like Wolverine has fallen down like 8 shafts already.
Just lousy with shafts, this
And
guy.
like another one? Wow.
He needs to watch out where he's going.
This is something. He's bonking off tons of walls. Yeah, they're kind of fun. They're a lot shorter than I expected. I thought they were going to be more like regular length comics exclusively for the platform, but they're short run. When you probably put maybe 4 or 5 of them together, they about make a normal length comic. Mark Russell, I think, wrote one for Black Widow recently.
Okay.
That was kind of a fun one-off. The Kelly Thompson one, that's the
Jeff the Shark.
Jeff the Shark, is just like a cute all ages thing without words. It's just funny scenarios he gets in.
Oh, okay. Cute.
The Jonathan Hickman one is just fun adjunct stuff that I don't feel like you really need it or it's essential to understanding all the other X-World stuff.
All right. Well, should we get this podcast started?
Let's do it. First up,
Yes.
we're going to be talking about Frontiersman by Kindlin and Ferrari. Frontiersman has a guy with a big F on his chest on the cover.
Or Frontiersman.
I love that the coonskin cap is like a mask, too. It's a funny take on a superhero, like these outdoorsy types. It reminds me of like Nick Offerman would play him in a movie.
Oh, 100%.
Frontiersman is a retired superhero that lives out in the woods.
I want to say the Pacific Northwest.
Sounds right.
Because he's surrounded by redwoods.
And some environmentalist hikes out into the woods, finds him, and says, hey, we want you to join our cause to save the redwoods.
Yes.
Is that a superhero comic? I pose this question to you.
That is, I was worried you were going to do that because this is forcing me to put my thinking cap on. What is a superhero?
Right.
Does it involve super strength, the ability to fly, to turn invisible? Nay. I say to be a superhero is to put yourself above yourself for other people's needs.
Oh, beautiful.
And for the good of humanity. Thank you. Tip your waitresses. Yes, this is a superhero book in a sense.
Yeah.
it was an interesting read because you really don't know what's happening
Uh,
because it opens with this. You think he's talking to himself in the woods, walking around, and he kills this robot, and then he finds the environmentalist. It's like you're definitely just like plopped into the middle of
yeah, his
a
story.
world in
Mhm.
his story. Yeah. But the artwork really drew me in
Yep.
from the get go.
Totally. I think it's pretty original. I enjoyed the first issue. It was engaging. I don't know that it had what I need to bring me back necessarily. Like his letter at the end certainly helped for me to say, okay, like he's very passionate about this. I want to support those sort of things. But the originality of the concept, it got me through a first issue. This could have been a one shot and I could have been happy with it.
It almost ended like it was a one shot.
Kind of did, didn't it? Like there's a certain resolution you get at the end of the issue when you realize he buys into this idea of being a figurehead for this environmental thing and standing up for what he believes is right, even though a lot of people around him are telling him you don't want to be used. Hey, you're retired. You're out of the game. I wouldn't call it a cliffhanger. Not all first issues necessarily need a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
No knock on the book and
No.
how it was written, but I just don't know that it's something to stick with.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, and I wonder if that is kind of the message he was going with for Frontiersman. I mean, the message he was trying to relay was not every book needs big, powerful, like sugary moments that the big two always do
Sure.
to tell a good story. And maybe he was trying to demonstrate that with this book of just like, this is a very extraordinary man doing, an extraordinary thing, but nothing like saving the planet from an alien invasion. He was
Right.
doing something very capable that any of us could do. I mean, we could go try to
Mhm.
save redwoods.
Yeah.
And maybe he was trying to illustrate that just because I don't wear a cape or a mask doesn't mean I can't be a quote-unquote superhero.
Right.
Do you know if this is a limited run or is it he's going to go ongoing?
The spirit of the letter he had in the back seemed like the intention was to go as long as they could with this.
Well, with that, may the spirit live on.
Yes.
And may you have many, many more issues. I wonder if this, like, each issue is going to be like a self-contained thing. Because this really did feel self-contained
Mhm.
at the end of this issue.
Yep.
So if that is the case, I do think that's a cool idea.
Mhm.
And keep up with that.
The novelty of the guy's outfit in the cover
Oh,
is great.
worth it enough. And hopefully we get to meet more of his fellow superhero brethren as the series goes on.
Yeah, it's fun. It was funny to meet the one guy we did
Uh-huh.
who was like
A professor now or...
a professor, right? And they're just like chopping it up,
Yeah.
shooting the shit, kind of reminiscing,
You haven't made tenure
but
yet?
so casually.
Yeah.
It is almost a funny commentary on the continuity question. You feel handcuffed by these characters who've been around forever, but in this case, you're creating a character who's now an old man, and you're not handcuffed at all because he's
Your
an
creation.
original character, right? So you can do whatever you want with the continuity.
Before we get into the next book, speaking of continuity and
Yeah.
just a muddy old mess, that Nick Spencer Spider-Man story,
Yeah,
did you guys talk about it already?
we didn't talk about that just because it was, I think, a really hard conversation to have on the podcast without like,
Really getting into it?
yeah, chopping up like what exact avenues and storylines he was referencing. And when I don't understand it that well, it's hard to discuss it and translate it.
Right. Because I sent you the Twitter feed of the guy who basically has a doctorate in Spider-Man.
I loved going through that feed. It
And
was
that dude
fantastic.
had like receipts for everything, and it was crazy to read.
Yes.
And I don't know if I think Nick Spencer is crazy or a genius
Right.
because he wrapped up, 20 to 30 years of Spider-Man backstories?
Loose hanging threads.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One of the linchpins of it was understanding that these two very negligible characters who were introduced in a low popularity storyline like 100 or more issues back, remembering that they even existed in the first place. And I didn't remember that. And I've been reading Spider-Man for like
20 plus years.
God, forever. And I was like, oh yeah, is there a clone of so-and-so still out there? It was something with like Osborn
And Gwen Stacy.
tricked a clone of Gwen Stacy
Yeah.
into thinking she was pregnant with his baby, and then someone made twins.
Yeah.
And she was never actually pregnant, and those twins ended up being characters that grew up somewhere along the line. And I thought they just disappeared into nowhere, but apparently they're hanging out still.
No one disappears in comic books.
And when you turn the page and get the reveal of like, oh, it was these twins, you're like, what? And maybe there's some Spider-Man fans out there who are like, whoa, holy shit, that's awesome. But I have not talked to many.
There's like one guy in his mom's basement just like, holy shit.
Yeah. It's certainly a skill Nick Spencer has. And bravo for doing what you do in that arena.
Yeah.
But as far as
a casual Spider-Man book.
Yeah, the comics I want to read and like what I'm able to maintain in my brain, it was really rough for me. It was really rough for me.
Yeah, I'm very excited for 75 to start with a new writing team.
And I love Kelly Thompson and Zeb Wells, and Kelly Thompson does a great job with
most characters she's given.
Most characters she's given, but especially like Black Widow and creating stakes without wrapping in tons of continuity and just telling like a really small story. So that, can unfold and feel big and feel like an event when it needs to. So yeah, I'm ready for a fresh take on it. Nick Spencer's written Spider-Man for 75 issues.
Yeah.
5 years? It seems.
It
Maybe
was
less?
4.
4?
Because we covered the number 1.
Okay.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Because Ryan Otley was kicking off artwork, and we were jazzed about that.
Yep. And then, he's written tons of tie-ins, too.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that he's written, since he started Amazing Spider-Man, 100-plus issues with tie-ins in the main line and all that, which is a feat.
Yeah.
So he deserves a rest, and I just wanted to talk with you about that, because when I was reading all that information about the book, I was like, I'm so glad I dipped out of that book, because it was... I couldn't emotionally connect with Spider-Man or Peter Parker in his run, and that's when I was just like, book is not for me anymore.
Yeah. And I don't know if the people listening who've been collecting comics forever kind of feel like you just have to keep buying it because it's something you've bought since you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like weird to like be missing just issues 785 through.
Well, that was
through like 850.
Yeah,
It's
that was
like
me and Hellboy.
Yeah.
I have every Hellboy and like BPRD issue because I've been collecting it forever.
Right.
And like new issues came out, and it's just like I have to get these.
Yeah,
I mean, they keep coming out.
Uh-huh.
So I understand the method and the madness of it all.
Right. But old Mike's coming back. You got to be pretty stoked. We covered that last week, me and Budget King.
What's that?
Mignola is actually going to be writing
and illustrating.
A Hellboy universe book.
Yeah. So get prepared for that, because the king is back.
All right. Do you want to get into our next book?
Yes, I do.
From Artie Bonney and Werther Dell'Edera. You may recognize that name from Something is Killing the Children.
Mm-hmm.
You do the art on that book.
Yes.
He Who Fights with Monsters from Ablaze. This must be something that Dell'Edera likes, those full sentence. He Who Fights with Monsters.
He Who Fights with Monsters on a Tuesday, but not on Thursday.
Definitely has a Something is Killing the Children title vibe.
Even the cover, color-wise, placement of the character, you get the feel of Something's Killing the Children.
Yeah,
vibe.
that's their style. This book, obviously, a lot of hype because of that. Collectors want their hands on it because
you never know.
This person's attached to Something is Killing the Children, which has been a phenomenon, and tons of covers for it, which is a little atypical for an Ablaze release. A lot of shops ordered this when you don't typically see tons of stacks of copies of an Ablaze book at an LCS. So I guess cool to see some of these smaller publishers get bigger names now and more orders be made. But ultimately, this book is a period piece.
It is, which is a good thing Budget King isn't here.
This one specifically is about Nazi Germany, Jews in hiding. I love stories like this, but they're very heavy, right? You're not going to have many like Nazi Germany books that are an easy light.
No, there's no Jojo Rabbit, comic book for World War II at the moment.
Yeah.
I thought this book was, interesting. It starts post World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and then jumps
I
back
think
in
in
time.
Russia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then jumps back in time to like during World War II when
Mhm.
Nazis were invading this town. There's some mythology
Mm-hmm.
discussed, and I think that's where the story's gonna go with the Jewish mythology of the golem.
So there may at some point be some fantastical elements in this.
I think there's going to be.
Yeah.
If I could put into one word, I was intrigued with this book.
Mhm.
It was definitely intriguing.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to lead me into issue 2 and 3, just to see how it spills out.
Yeah.
I agree with you on the World War II take. It is a unique part of our history that, for whatever reason, we need to keep reminding ourselves that we can't let this happen again,
Yeah.
because every once in a decade you go, oh shit, it's happening again.
This has sense familiar to something I remember reading
And
about
so-
in history class.
And I recently had this moment because, not to bring it down the podcast, but the 9/11 anniversary was 20 years ago.
yeah,
And that floored me that it's been 20
that
years.
was fucking crazy.
Because I remember that day so vividly.
Yeah. Right.
I was a sophomore in high school,
Mhm.
and that day I will never forget. And so whenever I'm just like, oh man, another World War II, period piece, I'm just like, do we need to keep reminding ourselves? And I'm just like, oh shit, we do, because like it's just a history always repeats itself, and like this book is really steeped in some history and some fantastical things, and I think Ablaze may have a potential heater on its hands.
Well, like you were saying, if this really goes into a more sci-fi realm,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been great to get more of a hint of that. Like our stinger at the end of this was that our lead is in love with a woman who is a maid for Nazis.
Yeah.
On the inside,
Mhm.
working for the enemy.
Yeah.
To make ends meet, and she's in love with a Jewish man. So, that's got me intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a story that's like really brought down to earth and feels like definitely could have been something that happened.
Oh, for sure.
The one thing that kind of made me chuckle about this was the story starts with someone being kind of kind and saying, I'm going to be better than the Germans were to me, and showing some like kindness to a German family who was just like trying to get home.
Yeah.
And a mysterious puppeteer sees that man showing some kindness
Yeah.
and pulls him aside and is like, I'd like to tell you a tale. And the guy's like, oh, I don't have any change to give you. And he's like, no, this one's on the house. I want to do this for you.
Yeah.
And he starts this puppet show to tell this true story, which is the story we end up reading.
Mm-hmm.
And the story we end up reading is so intense, with like so many crazy things happening into it. Throughout I should have forgot about the puppet show, and it would have been like so easy to enjoy. But I just kept thinking, what the fuck are the puppets doing right now to like convey this scene? Like, this is fucking nuts.
The guy has like 8 puppets.
This guy,
up,
yeah,
just
has like 8 puppets that are like having these like intense conversations, and this dude is just like standing there by himself watching this. Like, what? Are we gonna go back to the puppeteer
just wrapped in string.
at any point? Like, I feel like 20 issues from now, you will have completely forgotten about the puppeteer, and then it's gonna go back, and the guy watching the puppet show is gonna be like, holy shit, man, that is the best puppet show I've ever fucking seen.
You are like really good.
That is another level of puppeteering.
I had every intention of killing you, but that was magnificent. And it's almost like it kind of did have like this weird like crypt keeper like vibe to it. Just like, let me tell you a tale, and then like you throw some
Yes.
sand in the fire, and boom, the story starts.
And then at one point, there's an old man in the story that is also like, well, let me invite you in to tell you a tale, and then they flash.
So it's a story
into-
within a story.
Yeah, and then they
Within a
they
story.
incept into another like tale that I was like, this puppet show is just out of fucking control.
So there's like a puppet in bed,
yeah,
and then somehow another puppeteer comes out to
and
do
it's
a
like,
puppet show
"Doodle-doo,
inside the
doodle-doo,
head.
doodle-doo," doing the Wayne's World thing to like change the scene.
Holy shit.
That was funny to me.
That is hilarious.
I just had a hard time wrapping my head around, like, why that for...
You have to imagine the puppet show guy is either someone from the story we're listening to now,
Could be, right.
or like some kind of mystic character that has helped them. There's definitely some otherworldly, fantastical stuff happening.
Oh, yeah. Is our puppeteer going to end up being the golem?
Could be.
Yeah.
You never know.
Well, I think that's a podcast.
That is a podcast. It was a great podcast. We covered 2 great books, drank some great Boulevard beer from our friends at Boulevard Brewing Company.
And we're better for it.
I'm better now than I was, 30 minutes ago when we started this.
Yep.
Probably 45.
We had our veggies. Thanks, Ablaze and Image Comics.
Delicious comics.
Steamed carrots. And what's the other book? I'm calling He Who Fights with Monsters Steamed Carrots, if you had to put a vegetable with Frontiersman.
Oh, it's like a root vegetable, so like a beet or something.
Okay, perfect. I love it.
Yeah, or like a potato.
Okay. All right. Frontiersman, you're a potato. Goodbye. First Issue Club is brought to you by Boulevard Brewing Company via Space Camper Cosmic IPA. Our music is courtesy of the fine folks at Primary Color Music. You can find, friend, and follow us on social media at First Issue Club or firstissueclub.com. You can support First Issue Club by joining us on our Patreon for additional content at patreon.com/firstissueclub.